Iran's economy is a total puzzle. On the one hand, it's mysterious, it's chaotic, and for decades it's been under crushing international pressure. But here's the thing, it just refuses to collapse. So what's the secret? What is holding this thing together?
Right? I mean, how does it keep going? You'd think a system like this would have buckled under the strain years ago. Well, the answer is pretty wild, and it gets to the heart of how Iran really works.
It turns out, to survive all this pressure, the economy essentially grew two powerful secret hands. Think of them as these massive shadow organizations that are really the ones steering the ship far from public view. Okay, Section 1. The Puppet Master. The Supreme Leader's Control. Before we can even get to these hands, you gotta understand who's pulling the strings. Because in Iran, everything, and I mean everything, ultimately flows back to one single person.
So, Iran is what's called a theocracy. Now, you might look at Iran and see things that look familiar. You know, they have elections, a president, a parliament. But here's the catch. The ultimate power, the final say on everything, doesn't rest with them. It rests with a supreme religious authority. So while it has the trappings of a democracy, the religious side of the government holds all the real power.
And just look at how far that power reaches. We're not talking about a figurehead here. The supreme leader directly controls the entire military, including the IRGC, all the courts, all the state media. He even controls the councils that get to decide who is allowed to run for president in the first place. And, most importantly for us, he directly controls those two invisible hands we've been talking about.
All right, let's get into it. Section 2. The first hand, the boneyards. This first hand mostly operates inside Iran, and it has a massive grip on the domestic economy. They're called the boneyards.
Okay, so what are boneyards? The name literally means foundations, and officially they're registered as charities. But don't let that fool you. These are not your typical charities. In reality, they're massive business conglomerates. We're talking sprawling empires that have their fingers in just about every pie. Construction, banking, auto manufacturing, you name it. And when I say massive, I mean it. The scale is just mind-boggling. It's estimated that these so-called charities control somewhere around 20% of Iran's entire GDP. Just let that sink in. 1/5 of the whole country's economy is run by these organizations. So you're probably wondering, how did they get so big? Well, they have some pretty sweet advantages. For starters, they're tax-exempt. They also get huge government subsidies. And their finances? Completely secret. A total black box. No one knows where the money comes from or where it goes. Now, if you're a regular private business owner in Iran, how are you supposed to compete with that? You can't. And the kicker? They don't answer to the government, to the parliament, or to the public. They answer to one person, the supreme leader.
Okay, Section 3. The second hand, the IRGC. As huge as the boneyards are, believe it or not, they're actually the junior partner here. The second invisible hand is even bigger, even more powerful. And that's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. You've probably heard of them as the IRGC. Now, you might think of the IRGC as just a military force, right? And they are. They're this elite, ideological army, completely separate from the regular army, whose main job is to protect the revolutionary regime. But that's only half the story. They are also a colossal economic empire. And if you thought the boneyards 20% was a big number, get ready for this. The estimates for the IRGC's control of the economy range from 30% all the way up to 50%. That's right, a military organization could be running as much as half of the entire Iranian economy. It's just staggering.
So how do they pull this off? Well, their playbook is pretty straightforward. First, they get awarded massive government contracts for things like building dams or highways, usually without any bidding process.
so they dominate huge industries. But their real trump card is control of the borders. They don't just run the official border customs. They also control the unofficial entry points, the smuggling routes, the entire black market. They have a total stranglehold on pretty much everything that comes into or goes out of Iran. Okay, so let's put it all together. You've got these two invisible hands. The bonyads, they control the internal economy, the stuff happening inside Iran. Then you have the IRGC, which controls everything coming in and out, the external trade, both legal and illegal. And the one crucial thing they both share, they're loyal only to the supreme leader. They operate completely outside the normal government channels.
Right, so Section 4, the tangled consequences, a distorted economy. What's the result of all this? What happens when you have maybe 70% of your entire economy run by two secretive organizations that only answer to one guy? Well, for the average Iranian, it means living in a deeply distorted and, frankly, dysfunctional economy.
One of the most direct impacts is just brutal runaway inflation. We're talking over 30% year after year. That just completely destroys people's savings. It makes it a constant struggle just to afford basic goods. And a huge piece of this puzzle goes back to the IRGC's control over the borders. This control has created a massive underground economy. Now, partly this is to get around international sanctions, sure, but it's also a massive moneymaker for the IRGC itself.
And this right here shows you just how distorted things are. Look at the currency. The official government exchange rate says $1 is worth about 42,000 Iranian rials. Okay, but if you go out on the street to the black market where real business is done, that same dollar is worth closer to 1,000,000 rials. That huge gap, that's just a recipe for massive corruption. If you're someone with connections, you can get dollars at the cheap official rate and sell them on the black market for a fortune.
So with all this economic pain, how does the regime keep people from, boiling over? Well, in large part with massive subsidies, especially for things like fuel and energy. But look at this number. They spend a mind-blowing 27% of their entire GDP on these subsidies. It's basically a way to buy social peace, but it's incredibly unsustainable. And this is the real cost of this system. Just look at the per capita GDP. In Iran, it's around $4,000. Now look at a neighbor like Saudi Arabia, another country with huge oil wealth. It's over $30,000. It's just a stark visual of the lost potential. For all its resources, this system has really held the country back. There's a quote that I think just nails it perfectly. It describes Iran's economy as a deformed but very tenacious economic form. And that's it, isn't it? It's tenacious. It survives. It's incredibly resilient. But it's also deformed. It's not built to create widespread prosperity. It's built to endure.
And that leaves us with the big, lingering question, doesn't it? Can an economy that's run by these secret hands, an economy that's all about regime survival, can it ever really deliver a stable, prosperous future for its people? This system has proven it can survive just about anything. But surviving isn't the same as thriving. And that's the ultimate question.